Hello everyone, welcome back to Gamers Gambit this is episode 3, right? Yeah, this is episode 3. Thought I was losing my mind for a second there, because I'm like, okay, it's episode 4, wait, no. Casual Martial Artist is up to episode 4, and I know we're not in the 200s yet, but where Geekery in general is. Can you tell it's been one of those types of weeks so far, and it's only Monday as we're recording this?
Oh, yeah.
You know, I was thinking the other day, it's like, another name we could have had for this podcast was the A&W podcast, for like Alan Wayne, but like then people might have thought it was about root beer and not video games.
Exactly. Well, then we might get a copyright strike on that one.
Yeah, that's true. But so this is going to be the last episode of 2018, and got some fun stories to talk about today. But let's take a moment, since it's almost Christmas, the time we're recording this. This episode may drop before or after. I'm not sure when I'm going to drop it. But so when you were growing up, did you ever ask for video games very much for Christmas? Or is it something that, pretty much your parents just gave you the money and let you buy whatever you want, or you earned the money and then, bought whatever you wanted that way?
My parents, as you know, were a little bit strange, so there was no earning of money in my house because I would never be good enough at any of the chores that would be done. So it was hard to earn any money, so I would just pretty much ask because, yeah, you never had money of your own, really, to spend.
Okay, so are there any games you've ever gotten as Christmas presents that, really stuck out with you or really bring back fond memories?
Not really, to be honest. I can't really remember that far back. I'm too old, apparently, because I can't remember if the Super Nintendo was a Christmas present, because then I definitely know Super Mario World, taking that out for a spin the first time around and having an enjoyable time with that. And I think that was a Christmas present there.
Yeah, because there is one game that always reminds me of Christmas. Archon for the NES. Because I remember back when, I think I was in middle school at the time, but I remember, getting that as a Christmas present one year. And other than that, when I was growing up, I never really got video games much as Christmas gifts. After I got married, though, that's when my wife got me into we got an Xbox, and then then eventually I got an Xbox 360 as a Christmas gift, and then an Xbox One as a Christmas gift. Are you seeing a pattern here?
Somebody likes Xbox.
Yeah, and actually these were all my wife's idea, and my wife never really was much of a video game player, so I don't know why she decided to go with those games. But yeah, other than that, two other games that always remind me of Christmas, because these were three. Do I hear three? It's like I remember when we first got our Xbox, our first Xbox, one of the first games I got there was Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. When we got the Xbox 360, I think the first game we got with that was the Kinect Adventures, because we got it, we got the Xbox 360 when the Kinect came out. And then when we got our Xbox One, Star Wars Battlefront 2. So those games always remind me a little bit of Christmas, but.
So here's a question for you, since you mentioned the Kinect. So how long for you did it take to kind of get, I won't say sick of the Kinect, or how long did it take to lose the illusion that the Kinect was awesome? Or are you still kind of like, that was a good piece of technology?
5, maybe 10 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, because I never really got into it. They didn't really have any titles for the Kinect that I was personally interested in. The only one I was thinking maybe was the Star Wars Kinect game they made. My son, because he was younger when we got it, and there were two games that he enjoyed for it, Connectimals, and then the other one was some carnival games where, it was okay. I mean, but like I said, yeah, the Kinect just never did it for me. I think it's because, I don't know, I've heard mixed things about it. I guess some of the games for the Kinect weren't that bad, and then there were some where it's like, it just would have been better to make the game with a controller. So what about you? Have you ever had much experience with the Kinect?
So I'm going to be sad, as a sad man is, and admit to my fascination with even though I can't do very well at it, the Dance Dance Revolution. And the Kinect had a game, Dance Central, for the actual thing, for the Kinect, that, it was fun, and I went over to a friend's house because I never bought it because I didn't like the concept of the Kinect. But, we had some fun with the Dance Central games. But my thought on it always was, unlike the Wii for the motion controls and even to some extent the PS Move, the Kinect was missing agency, player agency. There's only so much movement you can do in front of a camera to where you're not involved haptically, you know what I mean, with a controller or whatnot, that I thought that was the biggest downfall of the Kinect was, yeah, it's fun for a little while to be in front of the camera, you know what I mean, and do stuff, but because there's no tactile response to any of the games, you're missing, kind of a player agency input that, most games have that make games fun.
Yeah, that's true. I can definitely see what you're saying there. And I mean, when my son, he was really little, so he just liked being able to play with the virtual animals. So, and then I said Carnival Games was okay. I mean, it was kind of a fun game to play around with every now and then. But other than that, yeah, it just never grabbed my attention. They never released that, with the exception of that Star Wars Kinect, which I never got around to playing. They just didn't really make anything that I thought was interesting. So,
Yeah.
On to our topics for today. So,
All right.
First, Mortal Kombat 11, the announcement trailer dropped not too long ago. Now, when it comes to street fighting games, well, first, were you ever much into the fighting game genre, or was that one that just kind of passed you by?
That's another one where I pretty much suck at them, but I've loved Street Fighter. I love Marvel vs. Capcom. Just never got into Tekken, but, like Battle Arena Toshinden and some of the others. So, yeah, the Mortal Kombats were also another one that, really like them. Not good at them, but I do like them.
Yeah, because when it comes, I was a fighting game fan back in the day. I'd have to say my favorites were probably Street Fighter 2 and Fatal Fury 2. Samurai Showdown, I enjoyed that one. Honestly, Mortal Kombat, I never really got into it because I always thought the control felt stiff. But I have to say, as far as story goes, Mortal Kombat had a much better developed story, I think, than Street Fighter did, especially back in the day. So, did you have a chance to watch the trailer?
I did, yes.
And I thought it looked really good. And I've seen a couple videos where people were breaking down, kind of like analyzing frame by frame. And, they were talking about and one of the things they caught at the end is that there's this hints of this new character. There was a woman, at least I think it looked like a woman, standing next to an hourglass, and they showed the sands flowing up instead of down. And also in the trailer, we had two different versions of Sub-Zero appearing. His newer appearance and then his classic appearance. So apparently the story mode for this game is going to have somewhat of a time travel theme. So given what you know of the Mortal Kombat mythology and storyline, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't know what to think of that, actually, for the time travel aspect, because I heard there was a visage, or at least somebody said that you could see Shao Kahn in there. So could it be that somebody wants Shao Kahn to win instead of the, Earth winning, or is it, you know what I mean? concept of maybe, in one of the universes, the Earth lost, and they want to, rectify that situation. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, because I think it's interesting how they're doing the story because, again, you go back to Mortal Kombat 9, it takes place right at the start or at the end of Mortal Kombat Armageddon. And I have to give NetherRealm Studios credit. I thought Mortal Kombat 9 was an interesting way to reboot the series because, yeah, you're restarting the series, but technically you're not really kicking the first 8 games out of continuity. And, it's just that Raiden, went back and messed up time. So I did like the story for for Mortal Kombat 9, where they did some different things like, where Sub-Zero became a cyborg in this one and Smoke stayed human. So I did like that. And so I think what they're going to be doing is they're going to be playing around with that aspect where, and I think you were kind of hinting at this, where maybe Raiden was intended to lose, and for some reason, Shao Kahn was supposed to win everything at the end of Armageddon. Now, I was also watching another video, and I think this sounds interesting. There's talk of making a web series called The Science of Mortal Kombat, where they're going to attempt to recreate some of the moves in real life. Now, have you heard about that, or?
That one I had not. The last time I heard that there was, and I don't remember, I didn't watch it, but there was a live action series I thought on YouTube for the Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, Mortal Kombat Rebirth. I've seen a couple episodes of it. The one with Raiden was interesting. I also saw the one with Sector and Cyrax. So yeah, that was supposed to be an attempt to reboot the series, except taking a more realistic and grounded approach. Though the Raiden one is interesting because, again, they do kind of imply that, he is somehow really this godlike character. So I think it would be, just as someone who studied martial arts, I think it is interesting. I mean, I'm sure, of course, they're probably not going to try to recreate the fatalities, though I suppose they could try on, like, the ballistic gel dummies, like, maybe try to rig up, like Kung Lao, one of his fatalities involves the hat, and how might he, like, they could take maybe a ballistic gel dummy and try to rig up like a steel rimmed hat and think, okay, how much pounds of pressure would be needed to use a metal rimmed hat to cut someone in half like that. And occasionally, if you do go to YouTube, there are videos where people have tried to analyze street fighting moves, like Matt Pat from Game Theory. He had one where he did on the, what was her name? Sindel and her Sonic Scream. And then he also did one where he was taking a look at Chun-Li's spinning bird kick, where she jumps up and she flips upside down. And it's like, okay, in order to do this technique, how much force would it deliver and how much strength or force would she need to be able to perform that technique in real life?
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I'm going to admit, I don't really play the Mortal Kombat games, but I do enjoy watching the story modes on YouTube. So a few days after it comes out, I'll probably go looking for the YouTube videos of the story mode. Probably not going to run out and get the game. What about you?
Depends on the day, to be honest with you. Most likely, like you were saying, not something that I'm going to be going out and getting right away. Only depends if I find anybody who wants to play it, you know what I mean, with me, and who I know is not going to just rub in that they're better than me because I'm a poor player. It's like, oh, this is getting old.
Yeah, it does suck when you're playing against someone who's a lot better than you and they're just like, spamming moves on you, and it's like, dude, I haven't even had a chance to throw a punch yet.
Exactly. The old Street Fighter, they get you in a corner and just low kick for 5 minutes where you're like, how do I get out? How do I get out?
Yep. Next order of business, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 has been announced, and surprise, surprise, this one is going to focus on Thanos and the Infinity Stones. Now, this is actually what surprised me. I don't know if you had a chance to read the article I sent you or not, but it's going to be exclusive to the Switch.
Which is strange to me, because the other ones came out for both PS3, I believe, and Xbox 360. So, and I think they even redid it for PS4 and the Xbox One. So that it's exclusive. I'm not sure. Did it say if it was a timed exclusive or just a exclusive forever type of deal?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm sure they would probably do it as just a timed exclusive, especially if it turns out like, you know, as it really, especially if it turns out really well. Now, have you played any of the Ultimate Alliance games?
Yeah, I played both of them, and I didn't beat either of them, but they were very fun, and they were actually pretty good multiplayer games. Like if you had a group of friends together, the only thing where it kind of didn't fit was when somebody would go off screen and then you had to try to go find them. But I think that's a problem with any multiplayer game, is that, you know, all of a sudden you're like, okay, now where are you?
Yeah, because I've played both of them. I've beaten the first Ultimate Alliance. I haven't beaten the second one. I actually didn't get very far in that one. I get to like the second scenario and there's like some bomb and I just can't seem to find a way to beat the stage fast enough. But now I know there were a couple of the prequel games to that, or not really necessary prequels, but they were done in the same style. X-Men Legends and X-Men Legends 2. I did play X-Men Legends 2 and I enjoyed it, though I'd have to say that one of the reasons I liked Ultimate Alliance so much is I think it really took a lot of the cool things about the first one and it just amped it up, and they also introduced some new worthwhile features that, now I don't remember if they did them in the second one, but I hope they bring it back in the third. As you might recall in X-Men Legends, if you had certain combinations of characters, it would create a certain type of team. Like, for example, if you had Rogue, Colossus, Nightcrawler, and Wolverine in your party at the same time, the party was called, new X-Men, because, they were the new X-Men introduced after the original 5 were being phased out, and, they got a special bonus. But what I really liked about Ultimate Alliance is you could make your own team, and then as you played the game with those 4 characters, you could unlock certain bonuses. So I really enjoyed that feature. Like I said, I don't remember if they had that in number 2 or not.
I don't remember either. I know the main thing that I liked about them was that, and hopefully I'm not remembering the wrong game, but actually going out and doing levels and all of a sudden being able to play a new character or bring another person into that team as you would, play through the game. That you'd unlock people through gameplay, and I thought that was kind of cool, that it was just like, all right.
Yeah, because I'm trying to remember, because it's been a while since I've played both. Because as I recall with Ultimate Alliance 1, for the only time you were limited is like partly through the first mission, you were limited to just Thor, Captain America, Wolverine, and Spider-Man, and then after you got to a certain point, then you could swap out. I know Blade was a hidden character. Deadpool's only a hidden character an unlockable character in the first one. I'm sorry, in X-Men Legends 2. And also in X-Men Legends 2, you can unlock Iron Man. And I know there's another hidden character in Ultimate Alliance 1. I just can't think of it right now. So, all in all, I'm looking forward to it. I'll probably check it out. And again, it just doesn't surprise me that they're doing the Infinity Stones, because that's going to be what's really big in the Marvel Cinematic Universe for the next few months.
I do definitely agree with that. And, now here's the question, though. Are they going to use the movie story, or are they going to use the original comic story?
That's a good question. It wouldn't surprise me if they just did its own original story, because I used to have the Infinity Gauntlet comics, and it's just when I got out of comic collecting, I probably sold them to the local half-price books for like $1 or $2 each, and I'm sure they're worth quite a bit now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's it's like, that's the thing. It's like we look back at some of the toys and comic books and stuff we had when we were kids, and it's like, we probably never thought that stuff would actually be worth money someday if we kept it in good condition.
Well, just think of our parents. Just think of our parents
yeah.
too, in the way of because I've told you that story about the last, die-cast metal Optimus Prime at the Gimbal store. Just think if they would have known, yeah, one day that's going to be worth about $10,000-$20,000. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
they might have bought one for themselves.
That is true. If I could go back in time, I would tell my younger self, okay, try to get mom and dad to either keep your toys in really good condition or keep them in the boxes. Because also in Star Wars figures too, it's like one of the more rare ones is that the medical droid from Empire Strikes Back. I used to have that figure.
Oh,
and now it's like worth a few $100s out of the box. And I mean, even some of the other video games we grew up with for the Super Nintendo, Final Fantasy VI or Chrono Trigger, our local half-price books, they've got a copy of Chrono Trigger in the box, and I assume they probably have the manual and have it complete, but they're selling it for like $200-$300.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, wow.
Well, one of the things, I don't remember if I ever told you, but I used to do, online role-playing through something called mushing, and there was this guy I knew who apparently had all, I don't know if, the special edition ones, but all the actual action figures and toys for the complete collection of the original Star Wars toys. And he had all of them, one sealed in plastic in his parents' attic, and then one that he used to play with them. And he's like, if I were to sell all that, he was like, I could get a pretty penny. And I was like, how many parents would think of doing that? You know what I mean? Not only getting their kids, one set, but two sets of the, all these action figures and all these, ships and whatnot.
Probably ones that maybe realize that these toys can have decent value someday. So that, or ones that have enough money that not only do they realize that these toys are going to be valuable, but who also realize, also have enough money to, actually buy two sets of toys. So
exactly.
Well, moving on. Next, we've got next order of business, the PlayStation Classic that we talked about in our first episode. And surprise, surprise, hackers have found a way to hack it already.
And it doesn't supposedly even take that much effort.
Yeah, because I was reading an article about it, and they were saying that the mistake that Sony made is they put the key, the authentication key right in the game's code, and it doesn't require a signature check in the code. So now it is possible apparently to run games off of a USB stick on the PlayStation Classic. Now, the article I read didn't say how well they would work, but what are your thoughts on that less than a week after it's released, already hackers have found a way to mess with it?
To be honest with you, it always happens. The saving grace from this is that everything I've heard at the PlayStation Classic is a hot mess. It's just, you know what I mean? They use the wrong format for the actual games on your TV, since we don't live in Europe, for the PAL format. They aren't the best versions of the games that they could have put on there. It's just, like I said, with this, it actually gives you at least a little hope of putting games that look good, you know what I mean, on there, and getting to the settings to possibly do a better, job than Sony actually did, in getting this thing done. And technically, if Sony might be smart, maybe they could release a USB stick, you know what I mean, next year, just going, here's the PlayStation Classic 2, just, you know, here's the instructions to load these new games on it or to play these new games, and, you know, try to maybe cash in a little bit.
Yeah, it's hard to say what they're going to do. I mean, and again, I guess the question arises, okay, so then in a year or so, are they going to, release an entirely new PlayStation Classic 2? Are they going to release a new, unit that's going to be PS2, or are they just going to do something with like, as you said, with like a USB stick or something you can plug in and use that to play the games? So, I don't know. I think it's kind of funny. I figured it would take longer. I mean, you'd think Sony would be a bit more careful with it, but maybe they just realized that, or maybe the reason they did such a, poor job at the security is they figure that, well, most, some of the people out there who are, have played these games already, if they don't already have their original, PlayStation, they probably just emulate it on their computers, and, most people aren't going to go through the trouble of, hacking it, because of course, whenever you hack, a game console like that, there's always a chance you're going to brick it. And yeah. I know when people tried doing that with the Wii, that was a big problem. And then of course you're out like $100, but I don't know. 'Cause we haven't gotten a PlayStation Classic yet. I don't know if my wife's parents are getting it for my son and I as a Christmas gift, so time will tell on that. But, I mean, I don't know enough to go in and hack it, so if I do get it, I'll probably just leave it as it is.
Well, from what I understand, the only thing you really have to do is plug in a USB keyboard. It just has to be the right USB keyboard. I mean, that's not even hacking at that point. That's just, being curious and finding out if something like that would work. Do I have the ability to plug in a keyboard, and what will it do?
See, I wonder why they put the USB port in that anyway. I mean, I think
the controllers are USB, okay. Aren't they?
I don't know. It would make sense. I mean, and that actually wouldn't be too bad if the controllers were USB, because then, if you play games on like Steam or BlueStack, you can use that for it as well.
Yeah.
So next story, not too long ago, they released the prequel game to Hello Neighbor. Now, have you gotten into the Hello Neighbor game at all? I mean, I know it's been pretty big on YouTube with playthroughs, and again, also Game Theory. They've done a few, videos on that where, they've done their different theories. What's your take on that? I mean, have you played Hello Neighbor? Is it a game that you're thinking of going out and trying?
Maybe I have not, because stealth is usually my one place where, that's usually automatic fail in those games. I like trying them out, but maybe I'll try it out on a Steam sale or something. But this is one of those that I'm kind of not aware of. It looks like it's going to be interesting from the box art.
Yeah, and I have to say, when I watched the trailer, it did strike somewhat of an emotional chord. And it wasn't just the music they were playing, but I think it was because when Hello Neighbor was in its like pre-release stage, again, going back to the Game Theorist channel, Matt Pat did a show where he was talking about how the Hello Neighbor game and the character in there, the neighbor, might actually be a modern retelling of Faust. And there's some evidence that the neighbor guy may have actually, he might be in some kind of deal with the devil. And there's another theory that, and again, this may or may not be true because I haven't played Hello Neighbor. I haven't really gone out of my way to watch any of the videos on it. But another one of the theories is that maybe he's trying to protect his children and his family from some sort of evil, force or entity, and that's why his house is full of traps. So that's why when I saw it where it was almost showing the neighbor as being a loving father figure, where that's where I guess it kind of struck that emotional chord, where now it's like, maybe I'm not going to run out and get the games, but I think I might go out and at least look for the playthrough videos so I can kind of get an idea of the story that's going on there.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I love YouTube, to be honest with you. If you don't have time or you don't necessarily have all the interest or all the things to a game, you can at least experience some of it through those Let's Plays. And I think that's kind of awesome to be able to do.
Yeah, and this might be one of those topics for another day, but the whole idea of video games as art and how they are starting to become somewhat of an art form now with the fact that they do they are telling better stories, I think. And like I said, just watching that trailer, it did strike that emotional note with me because I'm thinking, okay, there's this video I saw that's implying that he might. First that he may have made a pact with the devil, but then there's another theory that he's trying to protect his family from the devil, and now we're just showing him as this father figure type character. So what happened between that game and the Hello Neighbor game that, caused things to happen the way they did? So, like I said, it should be interesting to at least go out and look at some of those videos.
Oh, definitely.
We're also approaching the 25th anniversary of Doom. Now, this is not a franchise I have a lot of familiarity with. I was never into first-person shooters. I get lost, and also with some of the newer ones, everything just moves so fast I get too dizzy watching or looking around. I did play the shareware version of Doom, but I haven't played any of the other games beyond that. What about you?
Same thing, really. Never been too much of a Doom. Played the Doom 1, Doom 2, the kind of remake of Doom that was so awesome. I did like it because it had the real horror aspect. I don't know whether it was critically well received or not, because I do think it had a few technical kind of difficulties and all that, but didn't the new Doom, at least for the demo that just came out, was a little too fast, a little too arcadey for me, so I wasn't able to really do too well in that one.
So the article I read, it was saying that John Romero, he is releasing several new stages for free. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then, however, you do need a registered copy of the original 1993 version. Also, of course, they're doing a couple different sets that'll have extra goodies, including the soundtrack by a heavy metal band called Buckethead, which I'm assuming, because wasn't Buckethead, isn't he like the current guitarist for Guns N' Roses?
That I don't know.
Yeah, it's like he's some weird guy. He would like wear a mask and he'd wear a KFC bucket on his head and a rain slicker. And it's like on stage, I'm like, dude, he must be really sweaty in that raincoat.
I'd imagine, yeah. No, I've never seen too much of that. So, and I don't follow music too well to know the actual, people in it. But
I think it is significant, though, that they are doing something to commemorate the 25th anniversary of Doom, because it did leave a mark on popular culture and the video game industry. I might be wrong on this, but I think that Doom was probably, it probably wasn't the first-person shooter, but it was probably the one that, really helped kick off the trend. And that was probably because of, again, back in the days, I mentioned how I played the shareware version. This is how people would used to distribute games before high-speed internet became really popular. You would have shareware, which, and I think we talked a little bit about this when we were discussing the freemium game model, where, you would get the floppy disk and it would have like the first few levels, and then once you got to like a certain level, you could pay if you wanted to unlock the rest of the game. Now, of course, one of the other problems with Doom is not all of the attention it attracted was
positive.
Yes. So, and it sounds like you probably know where I'm going with this.
Oh, yeah.
Because, there were people that were claiming that, I don't think, with Doom, I don't think people were going after the demonic imagery as much in the game, but there was the whole, because, of course, remember back in the Columbine shootings, and That there were all sorts of rumors going around that, because again, I don't know if Doom is the first computer game that did it, but it had a really big modding community.
Yeah.
So one of the rumors was that the Columbine shooters had created like Doom levels of their school and used that to like do practices of the massacre that they would go on to commit. So I don't know. I mean,
Yeah. Oh, sorry. By the time the Columbine thing happened, though, the main thing wasn't the demonology type hell aspect, I don't think, of Doom. It was just the violence and the blood, especially with like the chainsaw and stuff like that. A lot of people were very against it at that time because throughout the 90s, I mean, especially in the PS2 era, which was directly after that, but people constantly, I think even today, still question whether violence in video games actually causes violence in the real world. And I thought, and you'd have to, correct me on this one, but I thought the Columbine shooters actually did put that they may have got, when they were alive, mind you, in their letter or whatnot, did thank like Doom and stuff like that for some of the things that they either taught them to do or be okay with or something like that, or they acknowledged Doom in some way.
That I don't know. I mean, I know that again, this is one of those urban legends of video games. One of the shooters, and it may have been both, I don't remember, but I know one of them did make some levels. But people have found those levels and played them, and they're nothing like the high school. So, as far as whether they acknowledge Doom for this, I don't think that had any real say in it. And I mean, I said I might be wrong on that too, but I'm pretty sure that them playing Doom wasn't, what pushed them over the edge to do what they did. And I mean, I know it's been really ever since around the time of Mortal Kombat. That's when psychologists really started to look in the psychological impact of violence in video games. And from what I can recall, because I had to correct one of my friends on Facebook. He had posted, after school shootings or mass shootings, there's this picture that goes around every now and then, and it's like there's a kid playing some violent video game, and parents are like, gee, I wonder where he gets, where kids are getting these violent ideas, and it's supposed to imply that playing violent video games makes kids violent. And I actually had to correct him because the American Psychological Association has done like about a 20-year study where they've found that people who play violent video games are no more likely to commit crimes or acts of violence than people who don't play violent video games. So that's one thing. And what always pisses me off to no end is people saying, oh, well, they're learning how to shoot from video games. No, just no. I'm sorry. That's like saying playing Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter 2 is going to make you a good martial artist. No, bullshit. If you want to become a good martial artist and an experienced and a good fighter, you go to the dojo, you train your ass off, and you take some lessons. You practice. Just playing a Street Fighter game isn't going to turn you into the next Chuck Norris or Hoist Gracie. Just like playing violent video games or shoot 'em up specifically isn't going to make you an expert marksman. So I'm sorry, it just pisses me off to no end when I hear people, go on about how video games, they're teaching kids how to become mass murderers. No, you.
Yeah, no. The problem is, and I totally agree with that. Knowing that I played enough games and I'm not anywhere near a better shot with anything. I've got no extra skills from video games. That's just how it goes, sadly enough. Anybody who's living in that world. And the thing is I think they've done multiple studies, and each study says, no, it does not cause anyone to become more violent after playing violent video games. It does not cause any of these things that they're saying that it causes.
Yeah, because and again, I think this was one of the conclusions from the APA study, but whenever someone goes out and commits an act of violence, vast majority of the time, there's either one or more other factors and that cause them to snap and go out and do what they do. But video games has never, as far as I know, video games has never been a reason. No one has been like, hey, I just played, Mortal Kombat for, it's 7 hours straight. Now I'm going to go down to the local mall and I'm going to try to rip people's heads off and throw fireballs at them. So yeah, it's usually other things. It's depression, it's mental illness, drug abuse. In some cases, it's, they're motivated by religion or politics or, other societal factors. But anyways.
Or really, it's the fact that they had issues before they started playing video games that were, we do have a large bit of, the U.S. having a good stigma on depression and any other kind of mental illness that, you know what I mean? It can go undiagnosed or, nobody can pay attention to it. And sadly, these are the things that happen when, mental illness goes untreated.
And you make a good point about how there being this stigma with mental illness, because they're often called invisible illnesses because, someone can look perfectly fine and feel physically fine. It's just that, if they have a mental illness, there's something going on with them. Now, of course, mental illness isn't the, cause for all people snapping and shooting. And from what I understand, it's mentally ill people actually are more likely to become the victim of a violent crime than actually go out and commit it. But it does, it can happen. But anyways, to go back to what I was saying, and there's this comic that goes around Facebook every now and then that really, I think, sums it up. It's like, what if we treated other diseases the way we treat mental illness? And it had people saying things like, oh, Bob and that cancer of his. Some people will take any excuse to get out of work. And, another one was like, oh, you have diabetes? Have you ever just tried telling your body not to have diabetes? And so
exactly.
I think we got a little bit off the point, but yeah, it's a very serious subject. And, it's not one that, I know we usually talk a lot about on the shows I do. So, yeah. Well, on to a happier subject. Pokemon Go. So this is a game that both of us play. And again, saw an article on GameSpot not too long ago that Pokemon Go it's finally gotten more popular than it was when it first came out. Now, let's take a trip down memory lane. When did you first start playing Pokemon Go? Now, did you start when it began, or did it take you a little while to get into it?
Took me a little while. It wasn't until friends actually said, this is actually a very cool, little game that they have. You just walk around, you collect Pokemon, you don't have to spend any money on it. And, I had seen it, you know what I mean? And I had another friend who actually played I forget what the name of it, but the game that this is based off of. And he would, play that all the time, going downtown and walking around. So once it came out, I wasn't sure that I really wanted to play it until a couple other people started playing it, and it was like we could compare what Pokemon we had and, and actually, go around together and collect Pokemon every once in a while.
Yeah, and because we started, I think, like about 2 days or so after it came out. I saw a friend of mine post about it on Facebook, and my son was really into the Pokemon game, so I figured I'd try to get him into it. And, we enjoyed it, because I remember for those first couple months after it came out, it was everywhere around here. And, and it's like almost every day, if the weather was decent, my son's like, let's go out and play Pokemon Go, and which I totally encouraged, because I remember I took him to a nature center, and usually when I take him to nature centers to just like walk around, he wants to go home after about 10, 15 minutes. But that day after we first started playing it, we spent over an hour there, and he never complained, never said he wanted to go home. So I know, and I remember, and I know I've talked about this on Geekery in general, because Houdini Plaza in downtown here.
Yeah.
Did you ever see that place after the game first came out?
Actually go in or just...
Yeah, or gone by it, either way.
I remember going by it, and I was surprised going by it at night with my friends that came back from Minnesota, and I remember all the different colored lights and everything, and it was a totally different experience than what I had remembered.
Yeah, and because I said, when I remember when it first came out, you go by Houdini Plaza, and it's like there would be, probably at least 100 people there if it was a decent night. Just sitting there talking and playing Pokemon Go. So it was a lot of fun. And now, unfortunately, we started to get out of it around, I think, September, October. I think part of it was just the kids getting back to school, and then the change of the weather. So I don't know. It was really fun while it lasted, but then we got out of it for a little while. So I think like a lot of people, we had that phase out where, we're playing every day for, 2-3 hours. Then we're playing, maybe every other day for an hour. And then it gets to the point where, we're maybe doing it once or twice a week. So, and then you just kind of forget about it. So what brought Pokemon Go back for you?
I never necessarily stopped, to be honest with you, but mind you, I didn't go out as much. I just randomly check it, I'd randomly go. One of the big things now, though, is one of the biggest problems with Pokemon Go, I think, that everybody's noticed and wouldn't have taken Niantic very much to fix, but it's their GPS is kind of broken in some ways. So when they did I have an iPhone, and they actually made this thing called Adventure Mode. So it goes with Apple Health, and it actually tracks on the pedometer on there of how far you travel now. So anywhere I walk, it actually registers now on Pokemon Go, where before, you were kind of at the mercy of the bad GPS system that it has.
Now, does that Adventure Sync mode, does that work if you're on like a treadmill?
Yes.
Oh, cool. I'll have to try to check that out. But yeah, because I think I forgot how we got back into it after we stopped playing it for a while. I think what happened is I just would do it occasionally, just go back in. And then that's when I noticed they started introducing these new features, the friends, giving gifts to your friends. But I think what really brought it back for me, and this is probably, the decline I think was just caused by they weren't releasing new content fast enough. So they really weren't giving you the reason to play it every day. But now, of course, you get the login bonus, or, well, not necessarily login bonus, but every day, if you get a bonus if you catch at least one Pokemon and get at least one Pokestop. So that really I think helped. Now, what do you think of the quests and stuff and the field research they introduced?
I could take it or leave it sometimes. I don't do any raiding. I don't really do, what are the quests that I have right now?
Yeah, I know the one I have right now is, I have to do a super effective charge technique during a gym battle.
Yeah, and for me, I don't go do the gym battle, so it's that's going to be so when is that going to happen? What's the other one? I've got to figure out and go to 8 Pokestops that I haven't visited before, and I'm so where am I going to go for that?
See, I actually like that when they do that because it forces, because, again, the original intention of the game was to go out and explore. So it does force you to go out and try to find new stops. And another thing I like about it is how there have been the programs that people have made to support it. My wife has an app on her phone. I think it's called Discord. And there's a message board on that where if you're looking for raids, you can post, hey, is anyone, someone might be okay, I'm going to do a raid at the gas station down on the corner of 1st and Main Street. Anyone want to join me? And, so it's a lot of fun. And we've actually met some, interesting people and some, cool people just by going out and doing these raids. So I think trading also really helped. But yeah, the fact that now you have an incentive to play the game every day, I think that's what really helped bring the game back, because now you have a way to invest yourself in the game again.
Yeah, no, I definitely do agree with that because it is nice to be able to work towards that weekly or month, that weekly goal or that daily goal of what can I do, you know what I mean, to get to the next, um, whatchamacallit, the next goal.
Yeah. And, of course, I think they've introduced more, regions, so that's helpful because just only being able to catch Rattatas and Caterpies gets boring really fast.
There was a time that I couldn't find, like, I actually had to change. I went from an Android phone to a normal phone, or from a Apple phone to an Android phone, and then back to, no, Apple to Android, and then back to Apple. So I had all these Pokemon on my Apple phone, or Android phone, which now I can't find at all anymore.
Oh, no.
It's like, oh, well, I guess I'm not going to be doing that anymore.
So, and then now they introduced the Let's Go was it Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu, where it's designed to work in conjunction with Pokemon Go. So I thought that was a good idea.
Yeah, no, and I've been interested. Have you picked up that at all for the Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee?
Yeah, we do have it. My wife plays the Let's Go Pikachu and my son plays the Let's Go Eevee. And it's interesting because, they've got the Pokeball as the controller now. And then, it's like Pokemon Go where you do like the simulated throws to catch the Pokemon. And you can have, one thing that's kind of cool is it's got the drop in, drop out co-op style of play. So if like my son's playing or my wife's playing, one of us can jump in and join them and then drop out if we need to go do something else. And they also have special bonuses, like if both of you are, you are attacking the Pokemon, if you both hit the same time, you get a special bonus for that. But it was actually kind of funny how, we were talking about how Pokemon kind of fell out of the mainstream or fell out of the public eye for a while. One of the things I do like that they introduced were the community days. Those are a lot of fun.
Yeah, I remember you asking me one day, and now that I work weekends, it's like, it's interesting, but since I do work right downtown now, it is interesting to be on the weekends during the community day, just opening up my Pokemon Go and just being surrounded by everybody playing and just having tons more stuff going on, than would be normal. It's just amazing some days.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's like one day, during one community day, I was at a local coffee house downtown meeting some friends in a local gaming group. And this one guy's like, I guess he wasn't really familiar with Pokemon Go. He's like, why is everyone walking around outside looking at their phones? And then we had to explain. And, even now, every now and then when, my wife and I are playing it downtown, people are like, oh, you guys doing a treasure or scavenger hunt or something? I know, Pokemon Go. So this brings us to the last section, our opinion section. So, Wayne, you had the idea to do for a topic for the opinion section. So lay it on me, man.
All right, so today I just wanted to go over, and this is going to be a weird, different take than a lot of other people have. So we all know EA wins, worst company ever award. We all know that EA is just kind of, it's good and it's bad for the community. We'd like to say it's always bad, but, they've done some good things too. But at the end of the day, Jim Sterling came out with a kind of video online that pretty much says nowadays, EA, Bethesda, some of these companies that are there because of the investors, they can't be happy with just some of the money. They need to have all the money. They have to see, twice as good results, as they did last year. Everything has to do better. Everything has to be bigger. If you don't have that, you're just not good enough. But my question for you today, and it comes from a place where we all know that EA has the basic rights to make any Star Wars game that they want. They've got the total license for it. And what we also know is they canceled pretty much 2 games that were in development. They got, as far as I'm aware, and I need to be fact-checked on this, but everything that had been done for a game called 1313, that was a single-player game that was critically acclaimed and looked to be really good. Everybody was happy with it, but when they got the assets from Lucasfilm Studio, when it went down and they got the license for all this stuff, they just decided to scrap it and cancel it. Then they got, I believe her name is Amy Hennig, who did the Uncharted series for PS4, which is another acclaimed series, to do the writing on a new Star Wars game. Well, they said, that's too single player, it can't be monetized, it can't be this, it can't be that, so we're going to cancel this game too. Then the multiplayer Battlefront 2, we all know what happened with that. And then now they have, I forget the name of the company, but they're making a new Star Wars game. They did the Titanfall and Titanfall 2, and they used to work on Call of Duty. But now they're doing a game. The question I have, though, is both those games, I don't know any Star Wars game that fails, you know what I mean, to sell copies. Both those games would have sold millions of copies. Both of those would make a huge amount of money. They might not have been able to be monetized, but why does EA not want that money? It's weird to me because, yeah, they're solo games. Yeah, you might not be able to put loot boxes into them. Yeah, you might not be able to get all the money, but it would have still sold millions of copies. You still would have made bank on these games where you put all that time and all that money into them, and now you're getting nothing for it. And I guess that's my question for you is, yeah, I understand that all the money isn't, you know what I mean, you want all the money, but why don't they want to make some of the money?
Yeah, and, you know, that's a really good question. And, I mean, I think part of it is, because there's another podcast I listen to, Lost in the Static, and, I mean, I don't listen to them as much anymore, but for some of their earlier episodes, where they did talk a little bit about video games. On one episode, they were talking about how video games have a fairly short tail, where, you know, a game might come out, it might, you know, sell a couple million units, and then it starts to go down and down. And of course, I think the problem is they realize the potential income of these games that, you know, where you can constantly force DLC, where you can do the loot crates and the in-app purchases and stuff. So they want to try to find a way to be profitable with the game for as long as they can. I mean, just as a good example, but let's go back to Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic again. Again, phenomenal game. As I recall, the only DLC they released for it was a free DLC, and it was just like another store somewhere on, I think, like Yavin 4. But once actually, that's a bad example for me because I got that game used. We'll use Knights 2, Revenge of the Sith Lords. We got that game new.
Okay.
So I don't remember. I got it as a gift, so I'm not sure how much my wife paid for it. Probably around $40 or so. Let's just say $40. Okay, so we buy that game, and actually, again, this is probably a bad example because, you know, of course, just the way it works, you don't buy the game directly from from the company anymore. It's like, you know, you buy it from the store, and the store usually gets it from a distributor. But, well, once we, you know, get that game, you know, once we got Sith Lords, they're not making any more money off of that than from us anymore. So that's why I think they like the approach they've done with, like, I'll just say Battlefront 2, how, okay, it's not enough that we just bought the game, but because of the multiplayer and because of the, you know, the loot crates, they can continue to make money off of it, even though we've already bought the game. And, I mean, I'm not sure, because, again, just going into the whole distribution model and stuff, I mean, I assume probably what they do is they sell the games to, like, a distributor, then the distributor sells it to the stores, and then the retailers sell it to us. So again, you've got that middleman. So let's say we get the game from GameStop, just as an example. And I'm not sure how much Battlefront 2 cost when it first came out. Probably about $60?
Probably, yeah. Sounds about right.
So let's just say 60 is how much GameStop was selling for it new. So, just to guess, they probably sell it to the distributor for maybe like, $10 each. And then the distributor sells it to, $10, $15, and then the distributor sells it to, GameStop for, I don't know, $20, $30 each. And then now, of course, GameStop, they've just paid $20, $30 for this game. They got to make more off of it. So they have to, of course, mark it up to 60 so they can make back the money for the game. And then, of course, all the other business expenses they have to pay. So, if that's how far a game went, where the only way the game company is making money is by selling it to the distributors, then how do they continue to make money after that? And that's why I think they've chosen why they like that, those loot boxes, and why they're not happy with just making a really good game, because once they sell it to the distributor to get to the retailer, they're not really making much money off of it unless they do DLC. So, I would probably have to say that's part of it. It's about the money and just making lots of dollars to keep the investors happy. But I almost wonder if EA, because there's something to be said for your big AAA game designers and then the independent game designers.
Yeah.
From what I understand, usually a lot of your independent game designers, the ones that usually don't sell physical copies, but they sell mainly through like Steam or the iTunes store or the Google Play store. Sometimes they tend to come up with more original games than these big AAA companies do. And I almost wonder if it's because the smaller companies are a little less afraid to take risks, where, like I know you mentioned 1313, which was, I believe, supposed to be a story based around Boba Fett.
It wasn't at first. It was going to be just an underground smuggler / kind of a crime game to be the underbelly of Coruscant. And then apparently George Lucas said, well, why not have Boba Fett in here? And then, yeah.
George.
George is awesome.
I don't know. You can't deny the impact he's made on popular culture, but I know there's, of course, anyone who's had a lot of success is going to have their critics, but I don't know. And I would have to say that's probably my guess, is because they're more concerned with making truckloads of money than they are with producing a game that, okay, maybe they're not making $1 million a month off of it. Well, that's probably a bad example. Maybe they're not making, a total of $50-60 million off of that game, and then just leave it at that. They want that game that they're going to make that, initial $60 million or whatever, and then they can keep making money after that. So I don't know. I think it's just the whole corporate mentality where you probably have a lot of people in charge that they don't really appreciate video games. And I could be wrong on this, but it wouldn't surprise me if some of those, CEOs and, the business side of things, they only see video games as a mean to make money. They don't see it as an art form, as a storytelling form, as, storytelling platform, as, a fun diversion. It's all about the Benjamins for them.
Yeah, that's very true, because it's almost proven. It's what did Activision say? They made X billions of dollars off loot boxes and whatnot, just in microtransactions and everything. I forget, was it 2016? I think, or it was either 2016 or 2017. I mean, you can't deny, that would. It just, like I said, it just makes me wonder, but you can still get that money and still release games at the same time. Just because something won't make you the amount of money, you know what I mean, that a loot box slash, microtransaction filled gem would, you know what I mean? It doesn't mean it won't make money, so why not still release it? I mean...
Yeah, they probably, again, and I'm probably stereotyping, I might be wrong on this, and again, I admit that, it just might be the corporate mentality where they're like, well, okay, we still have to spend money to release it, and it's not going to continue to make us lots of money, so might as well just cut our losses now, and they don't care about the fans and what they think. Again, just to go back to that 1313 game, they could have deprived us of a really, really good Star Wars game. Maybe it's not the Star Wars game we're used to with, the Jedi and delusions of grandeur and space opera and stuff like that. But even if you take away the Star Wars elements, it could have still been a really good game. So, I don't know. That would be my best guess, so.
Yeah. And we can never really know, It's one of those things.
Or you would think that the least they would do is they would reskin it and still release it as something else. Because I know that is something that has happened. Probably the best example I can think of that is, are you familiar with an old NES game called Journey to Silius?
Doesn't sound familiar.
It's a basic side-scrolling run-and-gun type game. Not a bad game, nothing special, but it had a really good music score, and, it was along that NES hard line, but that is an example of what I mean when I say a game that all they have to do is reskin it, because that particular game originally started out as a Terminator game. If you look at the style of the artwork and the, just the background design and the mood that the game invokes, I can honestly see it working as a Terminator game. But then Sunsoft lost their license to the Terminator franchise, so while they figured, well, we have this game, we've, put some work into it, so, well, we'll just change around some sprites and give it a different name and a different story, and now we've got Journey to Silius. And like I said, it turned out to be a pretty good game. Another game which, this is just a rumor, but again, I think it makes sense, Willow for the NES. Now, I think I may have asked this before, but have you ever played Willow?
Yeah.
And you know how it has very, very little to do with the actual movie, and how there's just a lot of other stuff that you do that's never touched on in the movie?
Yeah.
So one of the rumors I've heard out there is that Capcom may have originally been developing that as a totally different game. But then they got the license to Willow, and then they, they changed the main character to Willow, and they made some plot changes, and now we've got a game based on Willow, which is not a fault because it's still a really good, really fun game.
Yeah, I did enjoy that game, definitely. And it's weird to think how different games could just be, shoveled into, a license, if that makes sense. And you wouldn't even know it. You know what I mean? They just have to change some text, change some baselines of that, and then all of a sudden, yep, now we have this.
Yeah, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And I mean, another good example I can think of where you just reskin a game, Super Mario Brothers 2, which, was basically the Americanized version of Doki Doki Panic. So, yeah. And I'm sure there's, other examples out there, but, well, I don't think we've fully answered the question of why does EA not want to take our money, and while they do want to take our money, but why do they feel like they have to, why does every single game have to make, billions and billions of dollars? Why can't they just be, happy with making a single player experience that's a really, really fun game? So I don't know if we'll ever truly answer that question because we're not video game company CEOs.
Nope. Well, I would like to be. I forget how much Billy Kotick and the people over at EA make, but I wouldn't mind that money any day of the week.
The correct answer is they make more money than both of us combined and multiplied by a large number.
Exactly.
So, well, thanks again for listening, everyone. And do you have any closing thoughts today, Wayne?
Nope, just looking forward. New trailers dropped for Kingdom Hearts 3. So looking more forward to that every day. That game, I should have asked you, what do you think about Outer Worlds? Did you see that one by Obsidian that's going to be coming out?
I haven't seen that one, no.
Yeah, if you get a chance, look for, I believe it's called Outer Worlds, and look at the trailer. It's made by Obsidian and the former creators of the Fallout series. And it looks like that might be pretty interesting there.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out sometime. So, well, thanks again for listening, everybody, and hopefully 2018 has been not just a good year for video games for you, but hopefully it's just been a great year for you in general, and here's hoping that 2019 is not only going to be a good year for video games, but hopefully 2019 will treat you right. So, we'll talk to you next time, and keep on gaming.
Check out the guys over at Eclectic Media Project. They bring you podcasts such as Musically Challenged. Whose podcast is it anyway? Want to hear something interesting? And their newest podcast, Page 3.14 News. Check them out on Podbean and iTunes at Eclectic Media Project, on their website at www.eclecticmediaproject.com. Check them out as they are the home with a little something for almost everyone.
You have been listening to a program from the Point of Insanity Network. Visit us at poigamestudio.podbean.com for more shows. Follow us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at POI Game Studio.